Well, so this chapter we dedicated to the so-called market or Mercat de Santa Caterina, the market of Saint Catherine. This name comes from the use of this building before being a food market of two periods. You can clearly see the attractive, the eye-catching power of this building is that it's clearly a kind of hybrid of this mid-19th century, which is very clear, easy, not very elegant and splendorous classicist. There is no columns and great stone, but there are the elements of the classicism, as it is the round arch from the Roman Renaissance, the pediment, this triangle on some of the entrances, and then the balustrades, that is the that goes all along the cornice, but then, as you can see, by these parabolic arches, these tubular steel beams and supportive elements, and this cladding of very tutti frutti, very light, colorful ceramic. So it's from 2000 actually, when it was fully reformed. Why St. Catherine? Because before this white wall that is from mid 19th century. It used to be here a convent run by the Dominicans. The Dominicans, apart of having as one of the greatest female saints of their congregation, Saint Catherine of Siena, they also were worshipping as the old Christendom, Saint Catherine of Alexandria. That, as we can see in this great painting of Caravaggio, her story goes that she was very learned. Actually, is one of the doctors of the church, and she was so convincing in her teachings that she was even converting some of these pagans of the late Roman times. But at the end, seems that the emperor had enough with her, and then, like many of these early Christians, she went through martyrdom. And yeah, you see behind her there is a wheel with some kind of a spike. That was a torturing element or tool. But the miracle of her is that as the flesh of this very learned and beautiful Catherine just touched the wheel, it destroyed this wheel. And then so she was finally beheaded. But then the angels took her and they brought it to where nowadays it is believed her body was brought in a monastery in the Mount Sinai. Well, this church was like the headquarters of the Dominicans in the Principality of Catalonia. These Dominicans were playing a very important role in the evolution of Europe, especially in Catholic lands. They were like a kind of Gestapo of the times, and they were controlling all the cultural resources, no? What could be said, what couldn't be said, which books could be published. They were running the Inquisition, so they were not very specially, appreciated. But as they were, as in the Catholic lands didn't succeed the reform that in many places in Germany or in Holland, England, they were ransacking and taking all the goods and the properties of the orders, not so much the parishes, the parish churches and the bishoprics, but especially the reform from Luther Calvin. It was tackling the properties of the orders, so the Augustinians, the Franciscans, the so-called mendicant, like the Dominicans, then it was the Capuchins, the Trinitarians, the Premonstrians, also the Carthusians. That is believed to be one of the reasons why the north of Europe in general, from an economic point of view, in modern times was like more ready for the capitalists. And then also the Spanish government from these 1820s, 1830s, or even before, but more timidly, they start to consider that one of the reasons why Spain was more backwards from an economic socio-cultural point of view is that these monks of different orders, both in the cities as in the countryside, they had so many properties and they didn't run them very efficiently from an agricultural point of view and in the cities. So progressively they were building factories and these factory owners they wanted space to build their factories because let us remember that by these 1830s the cities like Barcelona and all the big cities in Europe, they were enclosed by walls. So if you were a capitalist and you wanted to build a factory, it was really very difficult to find a place. And if the council, seeing the progressive growth of population, they realized they need to make a food market like this one, they said, well, there's not really space. And so timidly, especially against the properties, the real estate properties of the Jesuits, then in the times of Napoleon, and then more decidedly 1836 by a minister of the times called Mendizábal, and later 1854 by a minister of finances, Madot, they were making these decrees that it decreed the confiscation or the so-called desamortización, that the endowment or the expropriation of the many territories and plots of land that these monastic orders, like the Dominicans here, they had a very splendorous, great Gothic temple that is from 1223 or 1240 until it was this forced expropriation or that also brought exclaustration. So they had to leave their cloisters. So these liberal forces and the bourgeoisie, they were very happy because they could enjoy more space in the cities after for already 20 years they also had gained new areas that used to be cemeteries next to the churches, but that was not enough for a continuous population growth. And then finally, after these laws of disendowment or confiscation of church properties, getting rid of the walls by 1854, then finally the Barcelona could enjoy as much land as possible, as much land as they would imagine, because as it was outside the walls, there was no limit anymore. But even before this decree by the government, that also they made it not just for ideological, political reasons, but for something so needed as cash. They were deeply in debt in the times, as has been a constant in the Spanish state, like currently 2020. And the way to wash these debts was to buy land that it was not from them, from the state, but from different congregations, but they were private entities. But as in this time, in general, the church was seen as a break for progress, and the bourgeoisie, they were quite against the church because they were privileged classes, like the aristocracy. They didn't pay taxes, and they had a lot of areas that the bourgeoisie, the capitalists, they wanted. And that's why by these 1820s, 30s in Catholic lands, and also in the north of Europe, the church was going through not his first better times, but and that's why they were tackling these properties, yeah, to get money to pay the debts and putting to public auction all these ex convents, so that transformed dramatically the geography, not only of Barcelona, like a fifth of the area of Barcelona, from being churches, they start to appear theaters, food markets like this one, or the one in La Rambla, the famous Boqueria, or was built a big square, Plaza Real, but also that happened in Madrid, Sevilla, Toledo, really in many places. But even before, it was the mobs in a turmoil, the so-called Buyanga, like the turmoil of 1835, that the people from Barcelona that as in the big cities, Bilbao, for example, they were liberal, so they were against the tradition and the conservatism, and the very far right wingers that they were pro-church or ultra-Catholic. They had here that the Carlists, they had killed some liberal militiamen. Remember the Carlists? They were these force, very right wingers, ultra Catholic, but also with some support in Catalonia and Basque Country, because different than the liberals, that they had like the regular army, they were not like guerrilla fighters. Like these Carlists, they had the support in part of Catalonia and Basque Country because they were up for kind of um, autonomy, foralismo, so-called. While the liberals, despite being more modern and pro-industry and relatively against the church, on the other hand, they were more unifying and centralist. So that was quite a messy period for Spain, the so-called guerras carlistas. But the thing, in 35, near Reus, some of these militia men from the Liberal Party had been tortured and killed by the Carlists. And when the news arrived to Barcelona, the people mad, they went destroying and putting in fire many of these old convents that from an architectural point of view, they were really great. So it's true that for Barcelona, these laws of disendowment, desamortización de Mendizábal, was a step forward for transformation and modernity, but also many great architectonic treasures were gone. Well, so that would be the historical background, great convent Gothic with some chapels and altarpieces from different periods like Renaissance, Baroque, was gone, but in his place was appearing also a very great building that is double interesting because, as you can see, and we were commenting at the beginning, is kind of hybrid of classic mid 19th century with strikingly modern second millennium by Enric Miralles and Benedetta Teclepuli, the wife. It's a work from 2000 or finished open 2005. Was taking a long while because after taking out different stalls and all the roof structure covering the old market only was safe as a way to remember and also to give a wall. With the modern market, only was safe the perimeter wall that doesn't place anymore any supportive structural role. But when they start to prepare, and as they knew, because the historians they knew that here was this great monastery, so they make the excavations and they're preparing the foundations. They stop it for a long period because they were mapping the different rooms. And so here was an apt, look here, it's a cemetery from the Bronze Age, or look here, it was a mill from the Roman times, like Roman, early Middle Ages. So this area, despite it was outside the very first Barcelona, Romans, Visigoths, France, it was populated and was some shops and stuff since the Bronze Age, as these archaeologists have found. So this Enric Miralles, a very brilliant architect in Barcelona, has also a very brilliant building, the headquarters of a company called Naturgy, and also he was designing the great Scottish Parliament, but unfortunately he died by 2000. And the architect of the mid 19th century, it's a man called Josep Buixareu. That in this case he made this kind of easy um, classicism with this repeat round arches, and then above covered by this baluster that not in the corners, but the rest of the wall, especially here in the front, the architect, the modern architect, was very clever and put the belly of the baluster, the little columns, alternative up and down. Well, so somehow the the two buildings from mid 19th century and 2000 they are totally disattached, but at the same time, so they have a beautiful marriage and talking in between each other, but it's an absolutely difference, no, in between the two areas. Though the round arch from the old building and the parabolic arches of the other ones, that is an element that contacts and unites the different buildings. There is also a lot of wood that keeps this warm into the building that is something necessary for his function. And the function is a food market. From inside also you can see this this roofing or the ceiling with this food element, and then for the to take the thrust and to support everything with these steel beams, these tubes that somehow this inspire this bundle of shafts by the Gothic so-called compost pillar. If you go, for example, very close to the Gothic quarter, just like 1 minute into the Cathedral of Barcelona, you will see this bundle of shafts that they are like 3/4 of a cylinder. Here somehow is the constructor or the composer. So altogether, this great design of Enric Miralles with historical reference, not only from the Middle Ages, but also from the very same great Catalan architect of all times and genius of architecture of all times, the great Gran Gaudí, that he was working a lot with these catenary arches, hyperbolic, parabolic arches, as we also see here. So, in the one hand is the constructive, you know, the different parts that in other periods they were putting it all together. Here it seems that they are dismembering between each other, and also would be structuralist. So the structure of the building is given there without any kind of hiding for the people to understand the thread from where it goes and where it is taken, and also for the beauty of the very same structure. So iron, wood, and the fantastic roofing or cladding of the roof with the ceramics, somehow remembering us the life that is still inside, with the fishes, with the fruits, with the vegetables. See the contrast between the pediment, the baluster, and this very modern structure that so the hyperbolic arch unloads in these horizontal beams that also they carry the water when it rains and it's expelled outside. So with the roof a certain distance from the old wall, that also protects the wall from the very same rain and gives this kind of porch area, for example, to be a terrace here that now there are no tables, but normally there are tables, so to have a mirror terrace in case it is too sunny. The upper roof gives shade, or if it's even raining, so you don't get wet. And the rear side of the market of Catherine, it's quite different. There aren't flats, so a part of fully reforming the the stalls, the different shops, that actually like the very same roof that is structured in three three elements, but at the same time kind of irregular. Inside the stalls, they are not put all aligned in a very regular grid of inner streets between the shops. They are put there like in an asymmetric way. So it's another of the things that made a walk or look from outside of the market very eye-catching, and shocking. Well, we can see these buildings in the area of Santa Caterina with a little representation of Caterina. We already were talking about Catherine of Siena and Catherine of Alexandria, buildings from 18th century with this graffiato technique, or from mid-19th century with this very sound balcony, and a part of the flats from above that somehow is like a prolongation of this whitewash walls from the perimeter wall. Here in the rear facade, it was a kind of um, recycling of elements that they were found in this archaeological excavation, and even from inside the different stalls. As you can see over there, the profile of a cut, a very salty cut. They have this form. And then actually here there's a little fountain with the basins, the wash basins, when they used to put, as now nowadays they also use this element, they used to put the cord to take out a bit the salt. So very cleverly, a part of these steel tubes and the boot structures. Miralles and Vendetta Tagliabulli, a study called AMBT for name and surnames of this couple. So they were using these recycling items, especially for the rear facade that is even more complex. So we can see the contrast now in between regularity and repetition of the new classical or classical in general architecture. So the old world, right? Everything the same height, everything the same width. Then every six round arches, then a pediment with a bigger entrance. The model work is absolutely much more asymmetric and even broken, especially in this rear facade. The architects very cleverly they got rid of the perimeter wall, so it's not absolutely surrounded by the perimeter wall. Here was absolutely taken out for the building somehow, the model building to enter more into this rear square, and even to show the to give place to these flats, and even to show the structure in case so you are not interested in go to shop there inside. The architects they consider that it was worthy to show the beauty of the structure that is that is also to be seen inside with this very powerful concrete beam coming out, all this structure in cantilever coming out of the inside of the market that it began, as you can see, with this 11th century little church, or relatively little Romanesque, then already transformed into a bigger church, then the great works of 15th century that made it as big as the biggest churches in Barcelona, like Cathedral, Santa Maria del Mar, cities X and Rome formed. That is telling you that it was this rib bolting with a great rose window and a belfry, but all, or almost all, except for the foundation, came to an end because the turmoil, and even officially then it was decreed, this forced selling of church properties. That was a food market as it was until the 90s, 1990s. And it's not the only market. It has been going through full rebuilding, restructuration. We have a Mercat de la Concepció, also in La Barceloneta, by the very same um, study of architecture. In this case, more the wife, Benedetta Tagliabulli, and even the famous Buccaria market has been fully fully transformed, or even the another of the biggest, or the two biggest. One is not anymore a food market; it's a kind of museum site. But the other one, San Antonio, it also was quite brilliant. The restructuration, but this case not above, but underneath. As you can see in this summary of another chapter or another video, in this case in Catalan. Oh well, here the shame of this great building, the market of Santa Caterina, next convent. I'm getting closer so we can see again some of these elements that they are put in a different way as the facade, though somehow it can be reduced to three kind of corridors or aisles, as it will be kind of the central nave and the side aisles is partially protected by this wood, and as they found some archaeological remains of this old church, then it's also very appropriately covered by a glass so that the people can see inside this part of an apsis and some foundations of the columns. So the beauty of the tensors and these horizontal beams, but everything kind of twist and with movement. So to some degree, a part of this kind of classification, the constructivist and also structuralist, we could also give it the level of organic. It's a building that somehow, despite it's made of iron and concrete in some parts, as you can see here, the bundles they carry the weight from above, from these different naves. They are brought together with this very sound piece of concrete. So it's a building that seems that it's like moving his very same body, and see how these kind of bindings that probably they were from the old food market, some of them, instead of putting them symmetric or aligned, they are put some kind of disorder. So is the another of the things, no, that this study of architecture was bringing forward, no, showing the beauty or trying to put some order in something that is intentionally disordered. That would be so some of the resume of the of what the architects they were trying to make here, a part of a very well lighted building, and also very hygienic and very with a great room all over.